So what do you think was like that made you different? Like back in the day where you could have done that path of the corporate route. Like, why did you make different choices?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I never felt like I could. I never felt like I could have a regular job. Like from the time I got out of high school, I never had a full-time job. I had a bunch of part-time jobs. I did some full-time jobs where construction companies and stuff, but I didn't last. I would do them for like a month or a couple of weeks, and I was like, fuck this. Like, whatever it is about, and it was the main source of all my problems in high school. All my problems in high school is I was not willing to do things I didn't want to do. So I would barely get by through high school. Like I would take tests, that would register intelligence or measure intelligence, and I'd be great. Everything's fine. But I would take actual tests based on what I was supposed to be studying, and I fucking barely paid attention. I mean, I squoze through high school with like a C average in most things. I barely got by. And even when I was going to college, I was only going to college. I went to Boston University or UMass rather, in Boston. And the only reason why I went is because I didn't want anybody to think I was a loser. So I was taking classes at UMass, and and I was teaching Taekwondo at Boston University, which was like a really good school. And I was looking at all these people that were preparing for life. And to me, it was like, you're going to go get eaten by alligators or something. It's like, what are you going to do? You're going to go get a job? You're going to be working 9 to 5? For whatever fucked up thing that was wrong in my head, I would way rather get up in the morning and deliver newspapers for 3 hours a day or drive limos at night. I had a really unstable childhood. So in my mind, anything that you were locked down to was death. It was prison. And whatever malfunction of my brain, I figured out a way to make it work for me.
Well, it was a survival skill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah.
But also a lack of, like, I'm not very disciplined. It looks like I'm disciplined on the outside. I'm not disciplined at all. I'm obsessed. I get obsessed with things. Whether I'm disciplined in certain aspects, like with exercise, and I do it when I don't want to do it. I force myself to practice, and I force myself to write. I force myself to do things.
Yeah.
But it's more of an obsession thing. Like, I get obsessed with either goals or tasks or things or puzzles or games. Like, I have a real problem. Like, there's something wrong with me.
Does it feel, well, why do you say that? Does it feel draining when you get obsessed with something?
Like, I'll play pool for 12 hours in a row.
Okay.
Like, I'll get obsessed with playing pool, and then I think I'm going to be the world champion. I'm going to practice 12 hours a day for the rest of my life. I mean, I'm a sick person. Like, whatever happened to me when I was young, like whatever weirdness involved, I figured out a way to manage it.
Right.
But it can get away from me. It's gotten away from me before, where I play video games like 8-10 hours a day. Like, it can get away. Like, I have to manage whatever craziness that makes me, like, focus on things.
Yeah.
I see it in my kids, especially my middle daughter. She gets obsessed with things. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is like a genetic thing. It's like watching a little female me in a lot of ways. Like, she read all 8 Harry Potter books in a matter of a couple of months. She just gets into stuff, and then you got to go, hey, shut the light out. You got to go to bed. One more chapter. Like, come on, you got to stop. But it's not like she's seeing it in me and she's mirroring it, because it's her own little weirdness, But I think it's obviously she's got a healthier environment than I grew up in, so it's not like a matter of like not ever wanting to be connected to anything permanent, because nothing is permanent. I mean, that was part of, I think, the lessons from my childhood. Like, no one's here to help you. Don't get locked in any fucking job. Don't get locked in any. Get ready to move at any time. And embracing moving. Like, to this day, I'll be like I gotta get the fuck out of LA. Like, everything's here. I have to do everything here. The comedy store's here. My family's here. My kids go to school here. All my friends live here. But I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to the mountains. I gotta get out of here. Like, I have this like nomad shit in me that I'm like constantly trying to manage. So, like, as much as people like to take credit for a certain amount of success, like, I can tell you all the different things that I did that led to me being successful at things, but almost it's like the function of a mental issue. Like, a lot of it is a function of learning how to manage a brain that doesn't work like everybody else's brain.
But that's so, I think, common for a lot of successful people, especially. And the difference is you're aware of how it works and you've learned how to manage it. But that, that obsessive thing, in so many ways, it has gotten you a certain degree of success. And all of those things, survival skills, compensatory strategies, whatever they are, they have their positives. They have ways that they really help us. But then they have the ways that kind of torture us in a lot of ways. And I think growth is really about understanding what are the ways that this isn't doing me any good and how can I be mindful of it. And also, like, how do I know now that, like, that now is not then? Like, how do I, stop being activated by old experiences in my past and just have peace for where I am now and take those gifts from the obsession that's made you successful, but not have the parts that kind of torture you at the same time?
Well, I don't feel tortured. So I think in some ways I've achieved some sort of a victory over my whatever mental issues that I have, but I can't do nothing.
Right.
I don't have. That's the reason why I have 3 jobs. Like, I can't do if I do, and I have 3 jobs and a fucking ton of obsessions outside of those jobs. Martial arts, archery, reading and writing, and all sorts of other stuff on top of podcasting, doing the commentary for the UFC, doing stand-up comedy. Like, that's the only way I feel even.
Yeah.
And I can't have one thing that I count on either.
Yeah.
If I only had stand-up comedy, or I only had the UFC, if there's only one thing, or I only had podcasting, I'd be like, this is my, I would want to quit.
Right.
I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is my fucking thing. I'm just going to be trapped doing this thing, talking into a fucking microphone out into space for the rest of my life. I don't even want to hear myself anymore. I got to quit. So whatever weird malfunction my brain has had, I've figured out a way over all the years of my life to manage it. But a lot of it's physical too. Managing my brain, a lot of it requires intense exercise. Like when I intensely exercise, then I can like, oh, whew, all right, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be cool. But if I don't,
it's like pent up.
Yeah, it's like it's all built up, and then it's hard to enjoy things.
Yeah,
it's hard to just chill.
Yeah,
like I can't chill unless I earn it.
Yeah,
like it's probably a malfunction, but the illusion is that it's not. The illusion is that it's a discipline and that it's all choices, but that's really not the case.
Maybe it's just you and how you operate. It's your operating system.
Are you coaching me now? Is that what's going on here?
No. Does it feel like I am?
Yes, it does. Yeah, maybe it is me. I mean, I think people...
And that's not a bad thing.
No.
Like, that's, I think that back to the acceptance thing, there's a lot of ways I think we're supposed to be. And we look at other people and how they do their life or whatever, and we think that because we're acting this way, something must be wrong with us. But a lot of times there's not. This is just the way you operate.
Yeah. You know what? Another thing that's interesting is when I was a kid, I was not very confident and also didn't like to talk to people. And
Really?
I would get anxiety. I'd get anxiety if I had to talk, and I'd get anxiety if I had to like talk to a bank teller. Like if I had to wait in line to go to the bank teller, I'd start freaking out like on my way to the bank teller. And like if you talk to like people who knew me from high school and they'll go, did you ever think that Joe was going to be a comedian? They'd be like, no. Like no fucking way. That guy wasn't funny. Like they didn't, I figured out a way to be more relaxed socially, and it wasn't an easy process at all. It took forever to the point where now I'm extremely relaxed socially. Like now I can talk to anybody. Like I one of the things I love about doing podcasts, I like just having conversations with people.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, you're another organism. You're another person. I want to know what's going on in your head. I don't understand your life. I want to try to see what connections you've made, what definitions you've fallen on. How you've defined this world, how you've categorized things, and how you're managing it, how are you maneuvering through it. I'm fascinated by that. I'm fascinated by the thoughts that people carry around inside their heads.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I love it.
And whether or not they're empowering or whether or not you're a woe is me type person,
And what are the puzzle pieces that have led to where you are? And I love that you're sharing this because I think a lot of people can see you and see your success and everything that you have and think you're always like this. and then it's just been easy because this is, you're always like this. But to know you had that background and you had the social anxiety and this is like such a stretch, I think is really inspiring because it gives people, it's like, oh, you can no longer argue that, you're just born a certain way and like that's just the way you are. Like you're proof that you actually can change and you can get over things and you can create things that, you probably didn't think were possible when you were 10 or however old you were when you were going through all that stuff.
Yeah, I think people have different starting points.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying that if you want to climb Mount Everest, good luck if you're starting from Santa Monica. You got to fucking walk all the way to Tibet. It's going to take a long ass time.
Yeah, and those oceans are going to be hard to get across.
But if you're at the base of Tibet, if that's where you live, or the base of the Himalayas, it's way easier to climb that thing. It's still not easy, but it's easier. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people that start, in the metaphoric Santa Monica with their life. They're really far away from their goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not possible, but it means there's a bunch of steps, whether they're conscious or unconscious, that you're going to have to make in order to get to a position. And I still remember fucking freaking out going to a bank teller. It used to happen all the time. I just didn't want to talk to people. I was just in my own head, and I was super insecure, and I just could barely get through shit, And
so what changed it? Just doing it over and over again?
Martial arts was a big thing. The martial arts was the first thing that I ever did where I was good at it, where I didn't feel like a loser. It was like I was pretty good at art, and
drawing and painting
yes,
stuff? Huh.
Yeah. And I wanted to be a comic book illustrator, and that was like a big focus of my life when I was younger. But I definitely took some sort of identity in the fact that I was good at that. And I liked the fact that people would say I was good at it. It made me feel good.
Yeah.
But it was different than martial arts, because with martial arts, it was the first thing that I did where I felt like I could really be exceptional, like I could be really good. And then I realized that, first of all, I was gifted physically, and then also this crazy brain of mine, if I could point it to something, like I would work out at 3 o'clock in the morning because I knew nobody else would. I knew they weren't there. So I had keys to the gym, because I was teaching. So I would go there, I'd wake up, and I would drive down to the gym, and I'd open it up in the middle of the night and put in a workout, because I knew that no one else was doing that. I knew they weren't there. And I felt like it gave me an edge, an edge, but it also, I felt like I was getting ahead of them.
Yeah.
Like it was some sort of a crazy race. So between the age of 15 and 21, I was just completely obsessed with fighting, and that's all I did. I didn't know. I probably barely knew who was president. I didn't know a goddamn thing about the world.
Yeah.
I wasn't reading shit unless it was like some samurai book on philosophy and combat. Like that was all I was obsessed with.
Right.
And that's when I was also I got into Anthony Robbins, somewhere around that too.
Wow.
But I was interested in like things that would give me an edge, personal development stuff that would give me an edge. And then through doing martial arts, and then also through teaching, I think that was a big one, was teaching classes. And then teaching at BU was big too, because when I was teaching at Boston University, I was teaching an actual class.
What were you teaching?
Taekwondo.
Okay.
That was, at that time, I had won the U.S. Open, I had won a bunch of different tournaments, and I was, I was doing really well as a fighter, as a martial arts competitor. So they had a Taekwondo program at BU, and I was teaching it. Mm-hmm. And I would have to address the whole class, but I would address the whole class as something that I was really good at. Like I knew I could demonstrate to them some movements and stuff like that. I'd show some things. I'd ask someone to hold something and I'd kick it or something like that, and they'd be like, "Holy shit!" And then they would listen. Like I was confident in what I was saying there, and it was like the only time in my life that I could remember being confident in telling people something.
Yeah.
It's like I would describe how you do it. This is how you do it, and I'll show you how to do it here. But this is how it needs to be done, and this is why, and this is what happens when you do it, and this is what involved in the mechanisms of your body, and so that gave me that was like the first feeling that I got where there was I knew that there was like a light at the end of the tunnel, or at least I knew, well, at least this, now I don't feel like a loser anymore.
Yeah. It gave you something to like like you said, be exceptional at.
Yeah.
And I think that's what gives us confidence, is feeling like we've somewhat mastered something, like somewhat really could understand something well enough to teach it.
Yes.
And
yeah.
without that, we're just chasing it, I think, and trying to get it through little things we do. And I think that's why a lot of people like go from career to career, job to job, or whatever, trying to find that little bit of, instead of sticking with something and like really focusing in on really studying it. And that's where I think the obsession actually served you in a lot of ways.
I think for sure. And there's also an expression that I love to use, that martial arts are a vehicle for developing your human potential, because it's so difficult and it's so terrifying. And then the idea of competing and the physical consequences are so devastating if you get hit, that you can't half-ass it. You can't slack off. You have to really pursue this thing with an insanity, like an incredible intensity. And then through that, you realize, like, oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
And then from doing that, you kind of realize, well, what if I apply that to writing a book or doing that or learning how to do something else? And for me, it was stand-up comedy.